The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hoop Ballers! Welcome back to Today in Sports Betting. Today is Thursday. What month is this? Hold on, it's all run together. May. It's the May month. May 21st, 2020. You can tell it's been another day of quarantine, another week. It's all just kind of been running together. I'm Devin Ellington at DALE007. This is a hoop-ball.com presentation, a part of the Hoop Ball Fantasy and Hoop Ball Tweets family. You can find all of that on Twitter. And then, like I said, the fantasy and all-around NBA content on hoop-ball.com. Speaking of, I will be joined by a contributor of ours today. And I've been trying to do this for a little while, but it's been real hard because he's over in a completely different part of the world. So I am excited to be able to get this feller back on, and we've done some work in the past together. So it'll be nice to have a familiar face on and to talk about some Pelicans, because he is the contributor and cover of the Hoopball Pelicans account. So we will be getting into that. And then just a reminder, like I said, this is a Hoop Ball Gaming presentation at Hoop Ball Gaming on Twitter. And then another reminder about that fundraiser that I am asking for someone to find for me. If you know a charity or fundraiser that there is someone that is working on or has in the works or something that needs some notoriety and some publicity, or just to be who wants to talk about the cause that they're trying to do, I would be more than happy to have them on and see what I can do to help out. And maybe if it's in my area, get hands-on. That'd be really fun. So let me know about that. And without further ado, I know I've kept him waiting long enough. I've wanted to bring him in, but there is some business up front. So Lyle, Swithenbank, will be talking now. I'm going to let him take the stage, and I'll do a brief introduction. Lyle, like I said, you cover the Pelicans. We've talked some fantasy basketball in the past. I know that you're savvy on some Australian leagues, so I'll let you take the floor. I don't want to do any disservice to what it is that you can offer. And without further ado, Lyle, thanks for coming up today.
Well, thanks very mumuch for having me. It's nice to catch up again and have a chat. It's been much too long. I know probably the last time we were on a show together was back in the golden days when we were doing the premium stuff on a Thursday night, which is always great fun. They're still running over there, actually, so that's been great to still see. They're doing their expansion draft, a few of the guys, which has been pretty awesome to see what those premium guys are doing. I think I'll be on maybe in a couple of weeks, but we'll see what happens there. To talk Pels, speaking of the Pels, I have recently taken over the Hoopball Pels podcast. I've renamed it the Pelican Scoop, which is been great fun to learn about the Pelicans, and they're a pretty exciting team. So I've been running that. Got a few guys on there. No doubt I'll have to get you on there for a chat about Pels as well, and do a cheeky crossover episode, as well as the Saturday Night Lyle, which is the live show Q&A on the Hoopball Facebook page. So do that every Saturday night from either 6 or 7, depending on how my Sunday morning's looking, because I'm 13 hours ahead. So, it's good. And we chat hoops on there and get a little bit of a following going there. So, if anyone wants to jump on and watch that on your Saturday night, especially in quarantine, feel free to do that. And, it's great fun.
Yeah, well, I'll say already, sign me up for both of those. Before the season went into the shutdown, the Pelicans actually were one of my favorite teams that I was keeping an eye on. They were building there for a little while, and Alvin Gentry's always been a coach that I've really enjoyed watching. Just the way that he coaches. He's been on some really awesome staffs in his career, and his basketball knowledge and history runs deep. He's from, North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got, these basketball roots in him. I believe he's got coaching in the family. So it's just one of those things that mixes well, and you get a good characteristic-based coach and some really good young talent. And I think he's doing a good job coaching these guys up and sprinkling in veteran presence also.
Absolutely. And at the start of the season, the Pels had, I think, 7 new players on the roster. That obviously gives you a bit of an idea as to why they started a bit slower than probably previously would have. Because there's a whole heap of talent on the team. We lost Zion in the preseason, so all of a sudden, all this hype that had been built about the new saviour of New Orleans, we've sort of lost without even seeing what happens. And then when he said he had to have surgery, we're then waiting until the middle of January to actually get an idea as to what this guy can do. Alvin Gentry, I thought, did a great job in being able to manage these new personalities, being able to implement his system, and get those young guys running up and down the court. It's a frenetic pace. I mean, I've watched a lot of the games back now in our free time in quarantine period, and that means that I've had a bit of time to watch basketball, which has been good. So seeing that that system implemented where it is high tempo, high velocity, moving the ball, it's been great to see the guys improve and grow together, I guess. And I credit that to the coach as the players, but you also have to credit that coach because he's got to manage all of these players. And the guys that haven't played in his system or haven't played together have to adjust and adapt. And, it's a testament to his work. And, I mean, who knows what could have happened if we hadn't have had this hiatus. They were on a real tear and they were vying for that 8th spot. So it'll be interesting to see if we do get some basketball back, whether or not that momentum continues or it just falls away and we leave the West as it is at the moment.
Asterisk. So I had actually put a futures bet in on the Pelicans to make the playoffs. So I was actually pulling for them. And, just a little foreshadowing to one of the questions I was going to ask you here in a little bit was to talk about their playoff push and then some Rookie of the Year considerations for Zion. But first, I want to backtrack, and this is a shame on me, but I forgot to let the folks know your Twitter handle is at Lyle Swithenbank, correct?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
And then at Hoopball Pels, or is it at Pelican Scoop now?
It's at Hoopball Pels. So
that's
it's still
right.
that.
Right.
I just announce it as Pelican Scoop when I jump on there. But, at the Hoopball Pels, at Lyle Swithenbank. If you can't spell my name, then just look around on Twitter. I'm on there somewhere.
Yeah. Just look for the Australian fellow. So
exactly. Yeah.
With the question that I was gonna talk about, and we hinted at it a little bit as far as to what the league could potentially look like or become in a restart fashion. But when transitioning here, we talked a little briefly off camera, and this is a little bit of big news. And it's the NCAA's ruling and proposal that they have a plan and a tentative action set for returning to action on June 1. So the point that I made, the speculative measure that I cast, was the fact that when the NBA shut down, you saw the rest of the leagues follow suit. And Adam Silver really handled it very, very well. And then I was wondering and pondering how the NCAA went ahead and made this decision, other than the fact that they're their own governing body of their own adults and whatnot. But the fact that the NBA hasn't announced anything quite yet, but they are opening practice facilities, including the Pelicans that had 7 players in there today. I think we're really close to the return, Lyle. And if practice facilities are open and players are working out, do you think they're gearing up and trying to return to play? Like, are they trying to finish this thing out?
I mean, from all reports, that seems to be an optimistic, I suppose, approach. And, they're opening it all. I think everyone's coming in and getting back in shape in case they do reopen. Adam Silver's come out and said he was going to make an announcement on the season between I think 1st of June and the middle of June, so 2 to 4 weeks, I think, from last week. And if we can get some sort of clarity as to what way they're going to lean, then they're going to come in with a plan and be able to, I suppose, open back up. I guess it's a preemptive thing. If the guys can train, this is still their job, they're still getting paid to be there, then they're going to do that. I think they're suffering. I think NBA players are suffering just like any of us. We're lacking that ability to go out and exercise in some cases, or go to restaurants or cafes and stuff like that. So I think everyone's sort of returning a bit to normality. And for us, I mean, in Australia, restrictions are starting to loosen a little bit, where I'm going back to my office on Monday. So, there's a bit of a change happening there, as opposed to working from home as I have been for the last few months. But I suppose it's the same for them. You don't get that full workout in, I guess, just based in your driveway in your house. Get back in the practice facilities. I think it's all, in conclusion, I suppose it's all an optimistic approach on the basis that, we will reopen. Otherwise, getting them back in shape and getting them back in to see what they look like to maintain that that level of competitiveness and I suppose, fitness in case a season does start, or we're looking till the start of next season. Yeah. I think the guys are just keen to get back into it and play some basketball from all the Twitter chatter that is out there.
Yeah. I know the NBA draft is a driving force behind this, and another thing that I thought was really a good sign is, historically, NBA specifically, when there are disputes and disagreements between the NBA, PA, and then the NBA itself, we as fans or coverers or writers, we typically will hear that stuff. And then me personally, I haven't seen a whole lot as far as the labor agreements and then how it's all going to look big picture wise and what the painting is going to be with the return and the revenue share and the player salaries and the all the messy details that goes into it. And again, I think that speaks volumes to how Adam Silver really, really handles this league. And it was a smooth and seamless baton pass, from Stern to Silver. And I think that is what Stern really was wanting in Adam Silver. And I think you can definitely see the ripple effect of how David Stern operated the league with Adam Silver.
Absolutely. And I mean, Adam Silver was throwing straight in the deep end when he joined. We had the Donald Sterling stuff. Yeah. I mean, that was a month in or 2 months in. I think he took over in the January, and that was the February or something like that. Yeah. And he has had to handle some absolute killer things. I've talked about this with a couple of my mates, actually. You've got sponsorships on the jerseys. That's something that they could never get across. Yep. He's dealing with coronavirus. He was dealing with the Sterling stuff. He had Kobe's death. He had Stern's death. He had the Rockets with the Chinese.
Who are not wanting to air NBA games as of right now still if they were to return.
Exactly, yeah, no. And that's a huge market for the NBA. And, to be able to navigate all of that. In terms of the relationship with the NBA PA, I think they've done a pretty good job. They've it seems to be fairly transparent. The fact it hasn't hit the media and the airways, that I think speaks volumes in itself, that they've all been able to say, well, this is what we're going to do and treat it like any other workplace. We don't need to get any of these media outlets to spin stuff. I did see that the first lot of the NBA pay packets of the reduced amounts have come out. So there was an article that came out that Devin Booker had lost about $250,000 based on this pay packet. So I think it was meant to be about 23 to 26% pay cut from what I understand. But again, that was one article based out of Phoenix that I can't verify, but I don't know. But that's what they said. So.
And, I think probably what you'll see is it'll fluctuate, I think, franchise to franchise, depending on, their total plus minus red, green dollars. But, no, it's going to be interesting to see how each franchise and the NBA as a collective unit tries to restart and, figure out the logistics of this whole thing, if that's what they do. But then there's also the, conundrum of figuring out the start of next season and how far do we push it back. An idea and something that I've heard that I really, really, really like, just so we can get from some finality in all of it, is the fact that it's an open and possible idea to just go ahead and let's go ahead and write this one off, and then we'll go ahead and start next season on Christmas. We'll have the awesome Christmas Day games like we always do, and it's going to be an awesome opening extravaganza. And then not only what that does is it shores up, where we stand for this season, but also that we're also going to get next season started up, and we have a very good concise idea of what that's going to look like. But we also will get the draft, and then we'll also be able to move on with that process, and we'll be able to begin our scout breakdown. Well, I mean, they've already begun to, who's kidding me, but they get scouted for 3 years. But what I'm saying is, profiling essentially, who's going to fit what franchise, what teams are trying to do. Golden State's got all that draft capital. They've got that cap money to spend this offseason where we could expedite the offseason process. And then in return, we could also go ahead and flatten out the foundation for next season. And then by time comes, we'll be able to go ahead and just reap what we decided on and were decisive on as a league a few months prior.
Absolutely. And I've seen both the arguments for and against for both. They had the players come out, a few of the big names, LeBron and Giannis and co, were all sitting out, and they came out and said in a press conference that they wanted to finish the season off. But then going forward, say you start in December, where do you then bring it back to? You can't then just have the next season sort of be the 22 season start, in December again. Do you pull it back? So all of a sudden it's this ripple effect, because if you start in December, even if you flog them and you do the back-to-back-to-backs like we had in the lockout shortened season, these guys hated that. And then all of a sudden you finish in June, these guys are absolutely knackered, try to get back to start again in, I suppose, October. You're trying to claw back 3 months worth of games, even if it is a shortened season. And if they try to play all 82 starting in December, then we're looking at it going into August. And I just don't think that's enough of an off season to be able to then start again in October. So whether they drag it back, say they do a extra back-to-backs in January and just try to creep it back a week at a time, well, maybe. But I don't think if they push it forward and start in December, then is that going to then have a ripple effect going forward? And I know that they try to stagger themselves with the NFL as well, so that they don't eat into each other's markets. So, if you're in December, that's sort of primetime NFL as well, and I guess if the baseball, again, if they start later and then everyone's going for that same audience that perhaps you would share otherwise. So it'll be interesting to see, like you said, red, green dollars. That's what they've got to weigh up. And if it is a matter of we're all going to eat from the same pie and we're all going to share the same audiences, well, then maybe that's what happens. But one thing I did see was that with the proposed hub to finish the season, that they could run it like a summer league, and that it would just start at 10 a.m. and they'll run through to 10 p.m. You'll just get games all day. I know for me, that just means that I've got 2 weeks of sick leave that I'll have to take off so I can watch basketball all day. But we'll see what happens. What happens there. But I definitely think they'll have to get some sort of clarity soon, because the longer they leave it, the less likely I think that they'll be able to justify finishing this season. If it is a case that we just say, no, we're going to scrap it, then we scrap it and we start on time October when all of this has calmed down, fingers crossed, touch wood. But, I think that should be – I mean, as much as I love basketball, if they did put a pin in this year, well, so be it. Let's do it again next year.
Yeah, and like I said, and like you pointed out also, it's going to be an important ripple as far as what leagues do. Like you said, they're all just kind of – I wonder if they're going to be going at each other's throats, if they're all going to try to figure out how they can get back into an effective position for where each league was benefiting the other, where it was this kind of symbiotism. because that's really what they had. They had their bracketed seasons, they had their markets, and I think the leagues actually did really well to kind of work together to carve out where each one of them belonged. And then not to overshadow some of the other stuff, including NHL and Major League Soccer over here, the smaller, some of the smaller stuff. And I think that's going to be an important part too. I think you're going to have the leaders of these leagues kind of talking with each other and trying to, figure stuff out too. Be like, well, if you have this and we don't have this, and this is what we've had for the last 10 years. So how do what do we, it's just going to be, and not to mention the TV, right? The contracts, holy moly, there's a lot to figure out, but luckily for me, there's people that are smarter than I am and get paid more than I do to do these kinds of things for me. So I don't have to worry too much about them.
Absolutely. And yeah, you and me both. I'm happy that I can just sit there and wait for it to come back on TV.
Yeah.
But I know there's a whole heap of cash. I know Adam Silver, I think, came out and said that there was a whole heap of revenue that comes from fans actually being in the stadiums as well. So that's another factor that has to go into it.
It's almost a 40% slash right away, I think, is what was put out in that proposal or whatever. He made sure to highlight and make sure that the players were aware of how much the fans' revenue actually was.
Yeah, well, segue to the Australian NBL, we've got one of our teams in liquidation at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so because of and that was the one that drafted or brought LaMelo Ball out, the Illawarra Hawks, so they're currently in some real financial trouble and had been for a while. LaMelo was sort of be the saviour. But then if we were to do another NBL season and we can't do fans, that's like huge. They don't even have a TV rights deal. So for us, it just doesn't justify. You just couldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'd lose too much money to even hire the stadium to be able to play in it. So, I think in the NBA, people need to – it's all well and good to get something out there and, okay, we're going to play some version of basketball. But at the end of the day, it's a business. People are spending money on this and a lot of money. If they don't think it's financially responsible to be able to do it, I don't think they'll do it. I think they'll just say, no, scrap it. We'll just put a pin in 2020 and we'll come back next year.
Right. We've been speaking of an abundance on, generalities right here. But one thing I want to try to pinpoint on and be specific with is talk to you, more so about the Pelicans, because that is, that's the team that you do cover. Yeah, sure. So, let's go back to before the season had been, and this is that foreshadowing, guys, for the listeners, this is what I was talking about. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so the Pels playoff push and Zion's rookie of the year chances. Memphis was starting to slip. Memphis was kind of faltering. They were losing some guys. JJJ was out multiple times. They had just lost another key component to their team, and it's blanking me right now, but he's a heavy rotational piece. Ja Morant, he's just one ankle tweak away from missing, 4 games, and Zion doing unbelievable things, could make up that shortcoming. I think, given the rest of the season being played out, just the viewers' eyes and what they wanted to have happen, I think Zion would have won Rookie of the Year. I think he would have.
Having a look at his stats, and we got 19 games out of him, as opposed to Ja Morant basically playing the whole season out. So it's so difficult to be able to, I suppose, extrapolate to there, because I just don't know once Zion got into game shape. We watched him play 19 games. I don't think he was anywhere close to his final form.
Exactly.
If he had maybe that last tear of 18 games, he just absolutely cut sick, and dominates, which he was looking like he was on the verge of. Perhaps he could have, and because it's all voted by, I think it's the media for the most part, perhaps that buzz does get him across the line. But at the same time, I don't think we can discount how good Ja Morant was.
He was phenomenal.
running a team that was meant to be a bottom dweller. Like,
right.
all of these young guys, they got rid of Mike Conley, all the other, Marcus All was gone as well.
Iguodala.
Yeah, they had that whole debacle as well.
Which, hey, I'm gonna be talking Grizzlies tomorrow. I just realized I'm gonna have Dave Williams on from Hoopball Grizz, yeah, man, I'm gonna get to talk two Southwest Division teams in a row. I'm liking this.
Best division there is.
It's so good. It's fun.
It's exciting.
And I actually think I like this Pelicans team way more than I did with any team that was ever including Anthony Davis. And the reason why it's so easy for me is because of Drew Holiday, because he was my favorite component of their teams when Anthony Davis was there. And I think he's been huge for these young guys, especially for Lonzo Ball.
Absolutely.
I think that the coaching and some of this veteran presence, even like guys like Etuan Moore, one of my favorite Purdue guys, he's on this team. He's got a nice 6-man type role carved out. And then just to go further upon my inclination on why I thought Zion would get that Rookie of the Year honor, because I thought the Pelicans were actually going to push in and make that playoff push. They were going to get the 8 seed. And if they did, they were either going to have to take out Memphis or another divisional foe in the Mavs. And the Mavs were kind of slipping, as much as I hate to say it, being a Mavs fan, but they were slipping. The team that kind of looked similar to them, the Suns, they fizzled out completely. So, yeah, I think the Pelicans were set up in a pretty good spot. The Spurs could always catch on at any moment, but again, divisional foe. If they did overcome that hurdle, that makes it even more impressive. So that was my thinking on it. I thought it was going to be a 2-for-1, them getting in the playoffs and him getting that Rookie of the Year honor.
Yeah, and looking at the schedules going forward, I think Memphis has one of the toughest schedules for the final 18 games, whereas Pelicans were not too bad. I think they faced Memphis twice, actually, so it might have actually came down to them playing each other that would have made them jump in. And I think that's something that I think with 3 games out behind Memphis, to make that up in 18 games, well, it's very possible based on, one, the injuries, 2, Zion's development, and this team cohesion. I was talking on Hoopball Pels the last week, I think, about how good their lineups were when you had Lonzo, Drew, Zion, I think it was Favors and JJ Redick, or Brandon Ingram, I think, as the starting 5. And it was astronomical at how good they were playing as that 5 unit on the court.
Well, they had an 8 or 9 game win streak, right? I mean,
exactly.
They just rattled off 7. Their offense was just like, and it was when Derek Favors came back after all those back issues finally. Well, and then of course, unfortunately, for him, the passing of his mother, it was just all kind of right in there. But once he was able to get on the court and stay out there, oh my goodness, that whole team, and then the energy that they were getting from Braxton Hayes.
Jackson Hayes.
Jackson Hayes, thank you.
Yeah.
I really liked watching that kid when Derek Favors was out, because that guy was just from end to end, and sometimes maybe at the detriment to himself because he was just so energetic and electric. But it was definitely fun to watch.
Absolutely. And to see those young guys take that step as well, that was pretty awesome. He was only drafted, I think he was number 8 draft pick in the offseason. To see a guy that's all of a sudden been forced into a starting role when really he was seen as a bit of a project. They're like, this guy could be phenomenal. He's just got to learn how to play basketball. He's an absolute athlete. But
he was 19 or 20. He was a baby. He only played 1 year at Texas.
Yeah, exactly. And so to get him in there and then to learn from Derek Favors. Derek Favors, I can't sing his praises enough at how important he is for that team. He is an absolute anchor. He doesn't look like the sort of guy on paper that you would need in that team, because you want to open the lane up for Zion and guys like that. Brandon Ingram to be able to drive as well. but it just worked. He seemed to be able to spread the floor enough that there was room in the lane, as well as lock down defensively. So for a guy that size who knows his role, knows what he has to do, you're only getting 25 minutes out of him a game. But those 25 minutes were the difference between getting blown out and winning and going on these massive tears of plus 120 when you're on the court, So, yeah, Derek Favors.
You think about it, there's times where he had multiple blocks up there in a span of, 10 minutes. He'd get like 3 of them and that's 6 points automatically right there. He turned back around.
Absolutely. So. And you can't discount it. And on the offensive end as well, there was a game, it was earlier on in the season, I think it might have been game 3 or 4. And we started, might have been against the Mavs actually. Sat there posting up and they just went to him 5 times in a row and he just got buckets. And you're sitting there going, this is Derek Favors is saying. And so to be able to have that both of two-way sort of abilities, I think the older head, I think he's 28 or something?
28, yeah. Almost 30. That's NBA old, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell that to Vince Carter.
Exactly. But, for that, those abilities for him to be able to, I suppose, lock in and be able to show these young guys that, hey, we don't need to always play at 100% and launch threes. You can do a half-court set. I think that's an important adjustment that we got used to as the season went on.
The the guys that we haven't even talked about, like Nicole Melli, Josh Hart, those 2 guys even are just going to be able to develop. I could picture in the next couple years Nicole Melli being a real nice poor man's JJ Redick, hitting the shots that he needs to, coming in, getting maybe 14 minutes a game and being crucial in certain possessions and hitting some, threes, maybe getting, 8-10 points. He's a good free throw shooter. So, if they choose to develop him over the next couple of years, he could turn out to be a real nice, sharp shooting piece. I've seen him actually run the offense and run some sets for the offense, and it looked pretty interesting. So, they got some young core starting, and they got young core depth. I think it's going to be important to maybe add another veteran presence, just, to make sure to sprinkle in a nice balance of that. But this Pelicans team in the next 5 years, I think they're set up pretty well.
I think it's one of the most exciting times to be a Pelicans fan, I think, for years. Anthony Davis, phenomenal talent. We can't ever discount what he did for that franchise. They were a team in dire straits for a while. Then they rebranded. Anthony Davis was drafted, was there, and he was sort of the face of that rebrand. But at the same time, the way it ended was a little bit the sour grapes. You had the That's All Folks T-shirt, and they were playing him 20 minutes a game so they wouldn't get fined. He could get to 25 minutes and exactly get off. You're not playing anymore, just so that the team wouldn't get fined. And I think that was such a sad way for it to end when you've got a guy that was the face of the city. He was phenomenal. Yeah. And then to lose him and then all of a sudden win Zion straight away, you're like, well, AD who? We've got this guy. We got this guy now.
They're saying he's the next LeBron James. So, we'll take him.
Yeah, for sure. And I was talking to Andrew Lopez of ESPN on my show this week's episode, and he talked about if you've got these generational talents, there's probably only 3 or 4 of them in the league at the moment, and you've got one of them, all of a sudden your life gets a whole heap easier. You discover what Brandon Ingram actually is, and it's like Kevin Durant light. So you're pretty happy with that. He's learned how to shoot from outside, which is phenomenal.
It's so crazy. You can see how much of it's just purely confidence.
Yeah.
He had no confidence in LA because of what was around him, what he knew. He saw the gallows and the guillotine. It was like that. That was like presented with him. And then even when it wasn't there, the couple of years before that or the year before that, for that young core, they didn't have no guidance. They didn't have no. That team was from the front office down. That Lakers team was pretty rough that year.
Absolutely, and you can see it from all their jumps. You've got Josh Hart who just throws himself into the crowd or on the ground every possession. You've got Brandon Ingram was a guy that came down. Lonzo Ball even. You have a look at him from
so
December.
much confidence, yeah.
He was like a top 5 point guard in the league with his production after December when Derek Favors came back. So to be able to see that development purely because you don't have, like you said, the guillotine sitting over your head, waiting for the axe to drop so that you get traded for Anthony Davis. It makes a lot of sense, and that their confidence would be restored. That the new change of scenery, and we've seen it time and time again throughout NBA history when players change teams, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, I didn't know we could do that." Yeah. So very exciting team to be a Pels fan. Everyone's 24 and under besides Derek Favors, Redick, and Etwan Moore, or Uncle E as they call him, as I've been told. So
he plays old man ball, that's for sure. He's just all about those fundamentals.
You need some old heads in the locker room.
Yeah,
you have to have them.
I can't believe we didn't even talk about JJ Redick until you brought his name up. I can't believe I didn't bring his name up. Yeah, that's just another great component there.
Absolutely, and he's the sort of player that I think his whole career he'd never missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Famously before the season to Zion, "Don't stuff this up for me."
Yeah.
And then Zion got injured, so he scratched his head a bit. But to be able to have a guy like that with that knowledge, with that winning mentality, I think it's so invaluable, and I think it's so underrated around the league to have winners in your locker room. They say, "Well, this is how we did it here. This is how we did it there." You want to be successful, you got to work hard, and that's something that I think he brings.
And they both came from Duke too. They had that little connection.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And he is he's a great player, and hopefully he sticks around and continues to mentor these young guys, because it's just going to make Lonzo better. It's just going to make even Drew better, even though he's a pretty established player as it is. Josh Hart, even Frank Jackson, all of these young guys that are sitting there on the bench learning. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, these guys are just picking the brains of some guy that's been around the league for years and knows how to win. And you want to build a winning culture, bring winners in. Well,
and then those little ins and outs, those guys, like say on just little post up, like momentum creators, or like pinching, just kind of getting off somewhere on the hip or something, like just little, pressure points, or how to work an elbow, a specific part of the elbow, even like the elbow on the court. But, just tiny little stuff, like something that you can do with your eyes as you're in the post and trying to maybe pass out or find a guy cutting down the middle, so you don't sell it. Just like you said, invaluable things, just those little things, just like what to do on a baseline set. I could go on forever and ever, but just these little things that make, those big, those fast break buckets big, those inbounding plays big, the execution down in, last 4 seconds of a shot clock big, just, those kinds of things. Those will win you so many games. I swear it. A team could either lose or win 12 games based off just those little things throughout the season easily, and that's probably a low number.
Yeah, for sure. And to see these guys interact with the older players and learn, and you're exactly right. It's those nuances that you don't pick up unless you're told about them, and even you might have learned it all the way through your basketball career. Okay, well, this is how you come off a screen to open yourself up. JJ Redick's been doing this for 15 years, if not like longer, all the way through. This is how he gets open, and that's why he hits so many open shots, because he works so hard off the ball. And I think if you're not showing how to get yourself open, you're never going to be able to do it, because you're just going to keep trying to fight three guys 3 times your size.
Right.
So I think it's an important lesson that he can give to these young guys to be able to get open. Another guy, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, from all reports, has just been following him around and learning. Like Andrew Lopez I spoke to was saying that he's taken him under his wing, and this guy's just like a sponge. He's just sitting there just learning from JJ. So if we see a big jump from him, even better. He's another guy that has a really high upside.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up the JJ stuff, the getting open through a screen and whatnot, because What I think it's pretty synonymous to is the fact of how he also defends through screens and how he's one of the best guards at getting through screens and getting around them, or just running a two-man defensive game with it as well. Positioning himself to not catch his teammate off guard, and maybe have them stumble in a bad position. He's really good about that and like remaining balanced all the way through any kind of screen, offense or defensively. I think, again, just another one of those invaluable and tangible pieces of hard work and winning.
Absolutely, and you can't teach that. And to see them actively play a role in improving these guys, I just think it's just phenomenal. And these are the guys that have come before, and they're teaching the next generation. This is what's going to keep us entertained, is that our basketball quality is better because these guys have said, this is how you do it. And Lonzo surprised me this year as to how good at pass anticipation he is. I know in my head, I'm like, well, he's really good at making passes. You think he'd be really good at reading where they're going to go. So he picked off some steals like they were going to him at some point because he just read the ball so well. And I think that comes down in part because you're learning from guys like JJ who do this night in, night out for the past 15 years.
Yeah. And, we probably wouldn't be shocked if in the next 5 years we see Nickeil Alexander-Walker starting and then saying, oh, wow, he came off that screen a lot like JJ Redick. Oh, right, they were teammates for 2 years before he, retired and moved on or whatever. But, yeah, so anywho, hey, Lyle, I wanted to transition towards the latter part of the show and just kind of now give you kind of a point here to just maybe grace us with something that you are going to be working on next week, maybe written or recorded piece, or, if there's a certain storyline that you're following, or just, educate us about something that's maybe prevalent and going on over in Australia over there. So go for it.
Yeah, well, so what I've been working on, we've got a few more interviews lined up for the Pelicans Scoop. So a couple of guys from the Bourbon Street Shots will be on in the coming episodes. We're still running the basketball history of New Orleans storyline that I've been doing as well. We've diverted for a couple of episodes, but I've got one in the works from a guy that absolutely knows all there is about Pistol Pete Maravich. So spoilers, but that's coming as well. So we're excited.
Locked in on that one. That's going to be, that's it for me. That's good.
So that's coming. Touch of wood, that interview will be this week. So I'm very excited about that. I won't spoil who it's going to be, but we'll get them in there. And we've got Saturday Night Lyle, so that's still running weekly. And that's been good fun. We just talk about the NBA news and breaking down the fantasy rankings for this year. So I started at 1 based on 9 cat season averages, and we just worked our way through what we think they're going to be next year, what we think they're what they could have been in the rest of this season, high upside guys, stuff like that, where you could draft them perhaps. So we've been doing a bit of a spin in that side of things. In Australia, well, we're starting to open back up from all the coronavirus stuff. So we've got sport coming soon. Community sport is starting back up in a non-contact sort of way. So that's exciting to be able to get outside and get some fresh air and catch up with your friends from 1.5 metres away. So that'll be good with all the social distancing and everything. So
yeah.
We're excited for that. Professional sports coming back. I think the rugby league comes back 28th of May. The AFL, Aussie Rules Football, starts the 11th of June. So at least we'll have something on TV.
Yeah.
The major league, the major media providers, Channel 7, is trying out putting canned crowd noises over the top, so dubbing crowd noises over the top of the empty stadiums. So that'll be interesting to listen to. Yeah. There's some stuff on Twitter with that. So if you want to see guys kicking a goal and then not having anyone yell, or no one there to yell, but yelling happening, well, that's on there. So pretty interesting to see, but these are the times we're in. But it's been an adjustment.
When the Australian Football League starts back up, I might need to pick your brain on some teams and Absolutely. Some trends, or maybe offensive numbers or defensive numbers I can exploit and see if I can't hit on some over-unders or some team totals.
Absolutely. I think I'd be more than happy to do that. I think we'll have to tee that up, absolutely, and help you with some AFL betting, because that'll be one of the only sports, along with your KBO and your Bundesliga, that's running. So
Right.
it'd be good to get that going, and it'd be good to see the AFL get a bit of international notoriety again. We did for one weekend, and then it sort of stopped. But it's good to get an international crowd watching that, and see why we all love it.
I actually prefer it over regular rugby. I had someone introduce me to it while my time in the Army as a sergeant of mine, and he really loved soccer. He was a Hispanic fellow, and he just asked me, he's like, "Have you ever watched Australian rules football?" I said, "What?" He said, "All right, cool. We're gonna watch it." We were on a 24-hour duty, security detail thingy-majig for like a building on post, and so we stayed up through the wee hours just watching Aussie rules football, and I got addicted to it. So that's how that goes.
It's a bit like that, and I mean, it's a great sport, and it's one of those ones that's similar to basketball in that it's end to end. There's not and I think, well, if you have a look at any of the Aussie rules or the AFL adverts throughout the years, they actually try to mimic the NBA ones. So there's a funny one if you ever look at the 2010 NBA season, preseason ESPN, I think, and the Australian rules 2011 season, it's identical in the adverts. So we try to mimic the NBA a little bit, but it's good fun.
Well, I find it enjoyable, and as do I find enjoyable the work that you do for the Pelicans Twitter and the podcast, the Pelican Scoop.
Appreciate it.
You've put out some really good fantasy content, and these interviews that you've been doing have been killing it. Like you said, that Pistol Pete Maravich piece is going to be, wow, say that 5 times fast. Pistol Pete Maravich piece is going to be really awesome. He's always been one of my favorite players. I grew up in Oklahoma. I'm an Oklahoma State fan, and so our mascot's Pistol Pete. And I remember being a kid thinking that they were like kind of synonymous or something, but not at all. But anyways, I'm rambling now. He's a great basketball player, and I love him. And he went far too early in life. So if you've never watched any of his highlights out there, kids, I'm not sure what 14-year-olds are listening to this. But if you're out there, Pistol Pete Maravich, look him up. The black and white stuff's the best.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to talk that with my guest, and I'll lock that in this week. He messaged me this morning, so hopefully we can get that all locked away, and that'll be in the coming weeks as I work through the basketball history of New Orleans. But very, very exciting. Yeah,
it's very awesome and historical. It's obviously got that heavy jazz component in the back, It's a real nice chunk of culture down there, and you can see it reflected within their sports teams, and the basketball team, I think, being maybe the front runner of that. So, well, Lyle, I without being too much more long-winded, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for you and I. I appreciated every bit of this and really enjoyed having you on. And we'll definitely get some AFL stuff rolled together when they open back up play. And we'll have you back on. I look forward to it. And don't be a stranger.
No, I'm loving what you guys are doing here, and I appreciate you having me on here. It's been great. And definitely we'll tee up some AFL and we can watch some games. That'd be good.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Lyle. I will speak with you soon, bud. And to the listeners out there, I will see you on the next one. Again, I'm at DALE007 on Twitter, at Hoopball Gaming, at Hoopball Pels, at Hoopball Fantasy, at Hoopball Tweets. That about covers it. You'll find the rest from there. And then, stay tuned. We got some good stuff collectively and singularly going on through this family of content. So, with that, I bid you adieu, Hoopballers. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.